Just remember, the past tense of cast is cast. Hi, this is James, and I'm excited to share our new metal casting sample board with you. And it has all the stages of the lost wax casting process, as well as some other variations on that, and then some direct casting samples. So let's get into it. With lost wax casting process, I used our mascot, Jack Skullington, a 3D printed skull from a CAT scan. So here we have the original from the 3D printer that's been cleaned up and ready to be sprued. And then moving into the sprued, ready to be invested. And did a little trickery here, cutting a invested flask in half to show what the invested and sprued piece looks like inside of it, and then actually burned out the other half so you can see the cavity there of half of the skull as it would be inside of the invested flask ready to cast. And here we have one of the pieces just as cast, still oxides and everything else from the casting process. And then we have a finished piece here that has been cleaned up and lightly patinated with liver of sulfur, and sort of shows the culmination of that full process. So hopefully this will help particularly our beginners get a sense of all of those stages that are involved in the lost wax casting process. Here we have a variety of different samples that I'm sure we'll be adding to in the coming semesters. And just starting off with a 3D printed example, since the whole board is sort of based off of that. And you can see the example of the skull directly out of the printer and then sprued up and cast with those supports from the 3D printing process, which actually shouldn't work that well because they neck in and would constrict metal flow. But I guess since there's so many supports, it tends to work out. So with all of the tests I've been doing, they have actually cast quite well. So a little bit of a surprise there in this full process. And then we have some examples of vulcanized mold. So for more advanced students getting into mold making and multiples and using vulcanized rubber molds for wax injection, we have an example there off of a piece of hardware, a retaining ring. And also then some students get into just recycling their metal and casting ingots. So thought I would show just some as poured results of that, getting a sense of where you're starting from as you further refine that and forge it back down into usable sheet and rod. And then I'm sure there'll be other found objects that will be cast and added to this sample. This is actually Obi-Wan Kenobi off of the head of a Pez dispenser. And he's also a great sample for some issues with the investing process, where you get a lot of those bubbles and warts that end up filling in if you don't have it proper vacuumed. And then with the direct casting process, a couple different examples here. We have cuttlefish bone, so carving into that soft material that is oddly temperature resistant and worked off of kind of an acrylic template of Texas. And so you can see before and after casting, and then as cast with some of those growth rings of the cuttlefish bone. And then using tufa, which is a volcanic rock that also is a bit softer to carve and works well for casting into, and is used a lot with the traditional indigenous peoples of the Americas. And so you can see some examples of how that texture comes through. And then some other experimental ones with directly pouring molten bronze into water, and you can see the kind of organic forms that result from that. And then having rice and pouring that melting bronze from the crucible directly into it, and you can see picking up some of the shapes and textures. And then also off of a straw broom, so you can see some of those forms as the metal seeps down in between those. So that covers the sample board for metal casting as it is, and I'm sure it'll evolve over the future semesters. And thanks for checking it out. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear from me when I post future videos. Thanks for stopping by.